Hello, everyone. Let me get my video started, I guess. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. My name is Dan Haverkamp. I'm a member of the St. Ambrose class of 2010. I also work in the St. Ambrose Advancement Office. I will be the moderator today. I've said it several times. You've probably heard me before. If you would, just please make sure those microphones are muted just so everybody has the best presentation quality we can. For those of you who haven't participated in one of these webinars before, the Buzz Talk series started this past June. It's really an effort to provide an opportunity for all Ambrosians to continue the commitment to lifelong learning, no matter where we are. We're really excited about today's presenter. His name's Ed Molitor, a member of the St. Ambrose class of 1992. Ed transferred to St. Ambrose during his junior year and spent the following 2 years playing on the Fighting Bee men's basketball team. After graduation, Ed spent a number of years coaching men's basketball at the collegiate level, including stops at DePaul, Northern Illinois, and Texas A&M, among some others. After a successful stint in the mortgage industry, Ed created the Molitor Group, which is an executive coaching and consulting firm based in Chicago with clients all over the country. He also hosts the podcast titled The Athletics of Business, and we're excited that previous guests have included various SAU student athlete alumni who have gone on to have successful business careers. Ed is also a sought-after keynote speaker. Just a note, as Ed is giving his presentation today, please feel free to use that chat box. Send along any questions for Ed. I'll take care of monitoring those questions, and then towards the end of the hour that we have together today, I will feed some of those to him. He's graciously offered to do a question and answer session. In the next hour, Ed's going to share some stories and lessons learned he has from his client work. And as we all know, because our lives have been turned upside down by COVID, he's also going to share some insights to help really show how champions grow through adversity. So again, we're really excited to have Ed today. Thanks so much for your time, Ed, and take it away.
Well, Dan, thanks for having me. Thank you for all the folks at SAU for the invitation. I was very humbled, really excited, and really fired up. St. Ambrose is a very special place to me that to this day, a ton of amazing relationships and a lot of life lessons learned from my time there. And we are going through kind of a very, very odd time, not kind of, I mean, it's a very strange time. But the beauty of this is I spend a lot of time talking to clients about how to grow through this, not just to go through this. And it's something that we've always dealt with in adversity, not just during the pandemic, but it's a big challenge, right? Like sometimes people just think in terms of survive and just play not to lose, and let's just get through this and to the other side, where we really focus on growing through, coming out the other side better, a better leader, a better, whatever your role is, a better performer. So I want to share some things with you, just to kind of piggyback on what Dan said. I was a college basketball coach for many years. And when we first got fired at Texas A&M in 1998, and I got into the mortgage business, and it was an amazing time to be in the mortgage business because it was really the first refi boom in Chicago. I had zero idea what I was doing, no idea. It was the old fake it till you make it. But the thing I realized right away was that I had gone from a transactional, business, from a transformational business, trying to get organized here, from a transformational business and coaching where I focused on making a positive impact on a young man's life so they can maximize their potential on as well as off the court, into what seemingly was a transactional business, a mortgage business. And everything was about metrics, everything was about numbers, everything was about dollars. And I was miserable. And that's where I really started to see the two things that I had learned early in life from my father and from other great coaches that I grew up around was that A, athletics are a microcosm of life. Okay. And that B, for me, my point of reference, basketball is a frame of mind game. And that's where I really started to see the traits, behaviors of high performing teams and elite athletes show up in the business world. And it blew me away. It blew me away. Like at that point, like people that weren't the first in the office and weren't the last to leave and didn't connect with others. And there wasn't a real positive culture where everybody cared about each other and they worked for each other, not just with each other. And that's when I really look back at the roots of this. That's where this all started, the Athletics of Business brand. So today we're just going to jump into how champions grow through adversity. Okay. And I'm going to share some things that I've worked with my clients, that I've worked on myself. I'm going to tell some personal stories, and I look forward to answering some questions afterwards and a little bit more about who I am. Okay. Who I am is, I'm a husband to my wonderful wife, Nancy. and my two children, I'm a father to them. That's Maddie and EJ. They are my life. They are my why. They are my purpose. I really firmly believe that I'm the luckiest man in the world. Coaching is in my blood. It has been my entire world, and not just the um, college coaching, but the business coaching as well. And I'll share that with you here in a second. But I was very fortunate. I grew up the son of a high school basketball coach. He did it for 42 years. We started on the south side of Chicago. He was at Marist when I was growing up, and took those values and that work ethic and that mentality up to the northwest suburbs. And to me, being around great men, great women, great leaders, great educators, that's just sort of the way life was. And it's just sort of the way, to me, it was special, but it wasn't unique. It's just the way it was. And two things I took away from a very early age, that life to me is about transformation. It's about relationships. And when all is said and done at the end of the day, and we focus on our eulogy virtues versus our resume virtues, that's the two things that really ring true for me, is relationships and the ability to transform not only others, but to transform yourself. I tell everybody I've cut down nets as a coach and as a player. I've been fired as a coach. I've made some great money in the business world, and I've absolutely failed miserably in the business world and other things. And it comes down to this, and you're going to see this pop up a couple times inside this presentation, so you don't need to write it down. And on that note, please don't feel like you need to write down the things you see on the PowerPoint. I am going to email you the PowerPoint so you have it. The best advice I can give you to get the most out of this time together is think about what's going on in your world right now, and there will be something that's said inside of this presentation that resonates with you. And if it doesn't resonate with you, it may resonate with the fact that it could be good for somebody else in your life. Write that down. Okay, so don't be scrambling, really get engaged and go ahead and write down things as they pertain to you. So the last bullet is this: am I doing the best I can with what I have to become the best I am capable of becoming? And I ask myself that every night before I go to bed. Did I do the best I could today with what I had to become the best I am capable of becoming? And this is what it means. Am I doing the best I can physically, mentally, emotionally? Okay, with what I have. And what do we have? We have our skills, we have our resources, we have our relationships, we have our time, and we have our circumstances. Okay, we all have our circumstances to become the best I'm capable of becoming. And that's the beauty of this. We have no idea what our potential is. We'll never really realize our potential. But if you can focus on getting 1% better every single day, then you're going to be working towards that unlimited potential. Okay, and what do I do? As Dan mentioned, I'm an executive coach, and I like to explain to people as a leadership performance coach. That's the work that I really dive into with folks. I work with both individuals as well as teams, corporate teams, as well as athletic teams and athletic departments, and different departments in the corporate world. And I do keynote speaking. The last one I kind of put as a joke. I'm a virtual ninja because of the world that we live in today, and every single thing is right here. Okay, so it's all on Zoom, it's all on Teams, it's all on Google. What is it called? Google Share? I'm not sure, but we're virtual, so we're going to do the best we can with this. And I'm a podcast host, and I absolutely love doing the podcast. And I'm not into the podcast. I don't do what I do to be the social media darling or to become popular or to become, I just need to be popular in this house. That's the only place I need to be popular. Okay. And sometimes that doesn't even work. But the podcast, I have some amazing, amazing business leaders in the athletic world that share their story, that share their journey, that share the lessons that they've learned that have helped them to lead and perform at a high level. And they talk about their failures. They're very transparent. It's been amazing, the journey that we've been on. One of the St. Ambrose alum that's been so kind to be on the podcast, I'm trying to get him back on again, is Shane Jones, okay? One of the co-founders of FUDA. Amazing success story. I believe he graduated in 2003 from Ambrose. We've also had Sean Jacob on the podcast, as well as JJ Constant, and some unbelievable folks. And, like you take yesterday's podcast that dropped is a gentleman by the name of Terry Tucker. First met Terry in 1975, not to date myself, okay? And Terry's dying right now. Like literally, he's dying. His body is overtaken by cancer. He's been in a battle since 2012. And he talks and goes to somewhere inside of that podcast yesterday that if you listen to that for 45 minutes, you've probably got 5 or 6 takeaways that you can take to your team, that you can take away to your family. That's what I try to provide inside the podcast. And that's what I'm going to try and hopefully provide for you today. So there's that question again. Are you doing the best you can? Apologize for the typo there. With what you have to become the best you are capable of becoming. So we talk about adversity, and adversity is different for everybody. And it's unique to yourself, like how much adversity does it take to impact you? How long does adversity have to really sustain itself for you to finally like just lose your mind? On that note, we talk a lot about one of the keys to success is how much you're willing to sacrifice, and you'll see it show up throughout this presentation. I truly believe, and it's proven over and over and time again, and when you listen to the great ones talk, they talk about this. One of the huge keys to success is how much you are willing to endure. Okay, and I'm going to keep checking as people join late here, is how much you are willing to endure. So during adversity, if you just take it right now to this pandemic, you have the doubt, the fear, the helplessness, okay? Some of the stuff so far out of our control, okay? So far out of our control. The doubt and fear, like what's next? We don't know what's next. There's so much uncertainty. We're angry. Our world, I'm sitting here thinking about all the things we have to cancel as a family, and it can stir up some resentment, and it can stir up some anger. And then there's the confusion, as I mentioned, and then anxiety. Now, what I want you to take away from looking at this slide, besides the fact we have an awesome mascot, the bee, okay? I want you to take this away. This is stuff that shows up in our world regardless if there's a pandemic going on or not, okay? So everything I give you today, I want this to be able to apply to you, once we're post-pandemic. Put your oxygen mask on first, okay? It's like the airplane. Probably a bad little steal there, but I just think it makes so much sense. You've got to take care of yourself before you take care of others. You can't sell what you don't own, and that's really significant, okay? Some of the great people I've had, if you go past, this is mind-blowing. We're coming up on our 100th episode next week, okay? But this pandemic started at episode 73, I believe, and we do it once a week, okay, to put things in perspective. The 74th episode is Porter Moser, one of my brothers, one of my dearest friends, head coach at Loyola. And from that episode moving forward, I was very intentional about asking people how they took care of themselves so they could take care of their teams, and how do they take care of their teams, okay? McKeel Haggerty from the Haggerty Group, Ron Elvis Stafford from Service Express, Tom Walter from Tasty Catering. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Rich Panico. It's the leaders, Reed Ryan, the president of the Houston Astros. Bonner Paddock, you'll see some of these different, it's unbelievable. And here's what they all did. And it's the same thing that they've always done. Pause, breathe, and reflect. And I want you to think about that, because what we have a tendency to do when adversity hits is like, oh crap, what do I need to do? Everyone's talking about the pivot, right? Everyone's talking about the pivot. How about we get on balance before we pivot? Really reflect into what it means in your life for you, what it means for your family, what it means for friends, your inner circle, the people in your orbit, and what it means for your team at work. Okay? And don't rush into things, and make sure that they take time to breathe. McKeel Haggerty, unbelievable. Just an incredible leader. And I said, McKeel, how do you, with all these people that you have under your employ, how did you do it? He goes, first thing I did, the very first day, I got them all on video, and I had them take a deep breath. That's it. And I said, that's all we got for the day. I'll see you tomorrow. And we're going to take 2 deep breaths together. And then we're going to go from there. And then they locked into 3 days of meetings, worked out worst case scenario. And that's another presentation for another time that is a lot of fun to talk about. Be human. What does be human mean? It means have grace with yourself. Okay. Allow yourself to feel the emotions. Okay. Don't get stuck in them, but feel them, acknowledge them, label them, and then move on. And then the piece that I want to dive into a little bit here is the be vulnerable piece. Because when people hear be vulnerable, they have a tendency to think that's like weak, okay, that it's soft, and that it makes you powerless. It makes you more powerful. You never know with the people that you're sharing with, the family members. One of my good friends, Jason Bay, who's a senior vice president of Dompe, okay? Matter of fact, it just came out. Dompe has done this unbelievable research in Milan. In Italy, the Italian government just okayed one of their COVID tests. Vaccines. It's incredible. But Jason, who is as tough as it comes, from Gore Test High School, played at Creighton, He said the first thing I had to do was sit down in my office at home, and I had to write down all my fears, and I had to figure out what my fears were, and then I had to figure out who I wanted to talk to about those fears because I wanted to share them. And then I had to figure out, okay, what knowledge gaps did I have for my team at work? And it's what he's done is mind blowing. Okay. It's a great conversation, but he said, I had gaps I had to fill. So I opened up to my team members, and not just people above him, but people beside him and people on the chain of command below him. And here's what you do when you make yourself vulnerable. I'm going to move on after this one. Okay. When we talk about putting your oxygen mask on first, when you make yourself vulnerable, the person that you're talking to, you show them you show them that you respect them as a person. You show them you respect their skills and their experiences, and you show them you trust them because you're opening up to them. But here's what this does as a leader, from a leadership standpoint. Once they see that you trust them to open up to them, they're going to in return open up to you on a deeper level, which as a leader, that's going to give you access to all the information you need to put them in a greater position to be successful, especially during times of adversity, because you're really going to know what makes them tick, and you're going to be able to connect their mind and their heart. And that's huge. Okay. Now, I want to make sure, Dan, you're in charge, just to give me a nod that you can hear the volume on this. Okay. We had a little technical difficulty in the last presentation. Control the controllable is the overriding biggest thing that you can do during times of adversity. Get center, get even, and control the controllable. I'm going to show you a quick video, okay? You're going to chuckle, you're going to laugh, but let me explain who this is. This is the New Zealand All Blacks, okay? It's a New Zealand rugby club, the most successful pro franchise in any sport anywhere in the world. Forget the old Yankees, forget the Patriots, I almost said the Cubs by accident. That'd have been a bad slip, okay? But you get the idea. These folks blow it all away. The Bulls with 6 rings, the Lakers of the old days, the Celtics. These are the guys. Everything I talk about now are things. I've had a very good friend that spent a month with them. Everything we talk about is what they talk about. These are some of the toughest human beings in the world. And I want to show you this video, and you start to put things in perspective a little bit. All right. Whoops. Let me get back to that. I know how to alleviate this problem. I do believe.
Suits stand in front of them and receive the challenge of the haka.
You can hear me. Okay. They have a great book. There's a book called Legacy by James Kerr about the All Blacks. And they talk about controlling the controllable. They talk about being authentic. They talk about, I won't watch this here. They talk about being vulnerable. They talk about honesty, integrity, and vulnerability. It's unbelievable. The reason I show you this is because they struggled hard for about 5 years with culture, the type of people they brought into it, and everything we're talking about today is what they look for in these men right here. Plus, it puts a smile on your face.
Well, the challenge has been received.
So control the controllable, okay? And I love that. So here's, back to where we talk about breathe, pause, and reflect. Now I'm going to take you down the road, and like I mentioned before, I'm going to show you stuff that you can relate to, but I want you to feel the emotion as we go through this presentation, because that's so big on adversity, right? So this is my little man, EJ. Okay, this is the last Thursday of June. And they have been complaining, Maddie and EJ, about mommy and daddy always talking about wanting to have a date night out. Why don't we have a family date night out? So we said, cool, but you guys got to pick out your clothes, get yourselves dressed. Okay. So with that being said, little man got himself dressed up in that shirt, the tie, the little lid, and he was very proud of himself. And perspective to me is understanding what's important and then also what's not important. Okay. It helps shape your point of view and your attitude about your circumstance. You think of everything we're going through right now. And I think this is something that we need now more than ever. And perspective absolutely is pulled out of what you are paying attention to. I'm going to talk a little bit about more attention management in a second. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you, I didn't know if I was going to do it or not in the presentation. It was the same thing with my VIP list. I didn't know if I was going to share this, but it's a story and it leads into an incredible lesson that I've learned about adversity. Okay. So this was the last Thursday in June. 2 days later, this was EJ. Okay. We were at a good friend's house. All my guys from high school, my football guys, hadn't seen each other. We all hadn't been together with our families in 25 years. It was an unbelievable day. And it was almost a perfect day until it wasn't. Okay. This is at the end of the day. And his little buddy, a husky, we had just been there a few weeks earlier. It was his best buddy on the farm. I mean, we were with the horses, with the pigs, with the chickens, with the dogs, the four-wheeler. I mean, everything was great. About 20 minutes before we were set to leave, the husky bit him right in the face, the chest, and the back. Okay. It was bad. It was a really, really bad deal. But amazingly enough, this kid right here taught me something about perspective. I mean, and I've been around a while. I've been through some things in life, right? But you know what? He realized he had his eyesight. He's back to playing sports, okay? He still loves dogs, even strange dogs, much to the angst of his mother, okay? He calls it his scratch, okay? He calls it his scratch. Here's the thing, though. He never sulked, he never complained, and he never pouted. Now, I couldn't even be in the hospital with him. He had to stay in Children's in Milwaukee. I couldn't be there that night because of COVID. Nancy stayed the night, and I stayed with Maddie at a friend's house, or at a family member's house up there in Milwaukee. The kid was stronger than any of us. And to me, he was being the face that we needed as a family, okay? And that leads right into one of the big things that's a key to success in adversity is don't have a victim mentality. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is Doc Rivers, okay? Doc Rivers grew up in Maywood, Illinois, went to Proviso East High School. I was blessed to be around some great people growing up. Doc was one of my guys when I was younger as a kid that I loved to watch play. Hard for me, he went to Marquette because back then that was when DePaul was up and coming. My dad started his coaching career at DePaul. They had some of my, guys there. But Doc was unbelievable. And when he was in grade school, okay, his dad was a Chicago police officer. When he was in grade school, his third or fourth grade teacher had all the students get up in front of the class and tell them what he wanted to be, what you wanted to be when you grew up. So Glenn Rivers, he didn't get the name Doc until he went to college, and Majerus gave him the name. He got up and he said, "My name is Glenn Rivers, and I'm going to be an NBA basketball player." Teacher immediately did what most teachers would do: sit down, stop screwing around. And he was kind of a clown, so everybody's laughing and whatever. And he was ticked. And when you hear Doc tell the story, it's unbelievable. So she calls him back up. "My name is Glenn Rivers. I'm going to be an NBA basketball player." "Glenn, sit down." She gives him one more chance. She goes, "Glenn, let's try it again." He goes, "My name is Glenn Rivers, and I'm going to be an NBA basketball player." She sends him home. So can you imagine being Glenn Rivers, and whether it was third or fourth grade, knowing your father, who is a Chicago police, I believe, lieutenant or sergeant, waiting at home for you, and you got to go home and walk in that door, okay? So Glenn walks in, and his dad does what any good father should do, what I would do. He says, "Forget this, man. We're going back to school. I want to hear her story." So he walks him in. As they're walking back to school, he stops Glenn, and he gets down real close to Glenn's face. He said, "Glenn, I'm going to tell you something. We're going to figure this out. And you know what? Your teacher's right, though, because if you don't stop acting the way you're acting, not only won't you be an NBA basketball player, you probably won't be real good at anything." He goes, "But no matter what you do, and maybe, Glenn, you will be an NBA basketball player. Who knows? But whatever you do, finish the race. Finish the race." And then Glenn goes on to tell the story after that about how his dad always told him, don't have the victim mentality. Don't come home and pout. Don't come home and whine. Don't come home and complain. So they get back into class. His father talks to the teacher. Teacher calls him up and says, you get one more chance. Go ahead. He gets up, looks at his dad, big Chicago police officer, looks at the teacher, looks at his buddies that were just getting ready to laugh because they knew exactly what Glenn was going to do. He says, my name is Glenn Rivers, and I'm going to be an NBA basketball player. And that's what he did. All right. Great player, great coach, great leader. But Glenn's been through a lot in his career. When he was in San Antonio, neo-Nazis, white Nazis, they burnt his house to the ground. They burnt his house to the ground because he was married to a white woman. Okay. Never had the victim mentality. When he was the head coach of the LA Clippers, Donald Sterling, the owner, right? The owner was caught on video berating his girlfriend for taking pictures and putting on social media pictures with her and Magic Johnson. Explicitive filled video audio. The very first thing he said to his teams was, my name is Glenn Rivers. I'm a black man from Maywood, Illinois. And I refuse to be a victim. And that's the first thing. Stop the poor me. Stop the I can't believe this is happening. Stop the what's next. And you got to move on. Okay. Do not have the victim mentality. I love this. This next thing is one of the most powerful mindsets you can have. Okay. Adversity is not something that happens to us. It is something that happens for us. Now I want you to take a second and really think about that, because that's a very significant shift in words. Adversity is not something that happens to us. It is something that happens for us. Think about something in your life, a circumstance, something that's got you all fired up, like how could this happen to me? All right. And here's an exercise I do with my very high level executive clients. I do teams that I'll go and talk to, college teams, on a piece of paper at the top. And I will send you this exercise. At the top of a piece of paper, write down something right now that you feel is a really challenging time, a big bit of adversity. It could be a bill you have to pay. It could be the fact that you're still unemployed. It could be the fact that you got some derelict that you're trying to lead that's not buying in. Whatever it is, all right? Write it there. And then after you do that, you take some time and you write down the way it makes you feel, all right? Now, on the left side of your piece of paper, write for me. On the right side, write to me. Then take the time. Don't be in a hurry. Take the time to write down all the possibilities. If you take that mindset that this piece of adversity that's made me feel like this is happening for me, not to me. And just to cement how powerful the for me side is, go ahead and write down what you would do if you felt like and you accepted the fact it was happening to you. I'm going to share a couple stories here with you in a second about people. And this is like I said, Porter is one of he's a brother. Okay. I don't even consider him a friend. He is a brother. We've been through so much together. We played in the NCAA tournament together. We got fired at A&M together, weddings. I mean, everything, right? Highs and lows. In the early 2000s, I'm sitting at my desk and I get a phone call from Phil Escala, the head coach at Lake Forest. I don't think he was at Lake Forest at the time. And Phil and Porter grew up together. Now he's coaching. Then he goes, hey, man, have you talked to Porter? I go, I talked to him a couple of days ago. Why? And he goes, he just got fired. I mean, he didn't get fired. I go, they just beat Creighton 2 weeks ago. I go, they got upset in the tournament. He was a head coach at Illinois State. He was on the rise, a young up-and-coming coach, okay? What the world didn't know, he had his third AD in 4 years, blindsided him, fired him. All right? Now, Porter could have gone in the tank. He could have absolutely gone in the tank, and he had every right to go in the tank. He had a couple small Division I job offers, head jobs that he could have taken. But Rick Majerus came calling, okay? And he had first met Rick years ago when he was coaching at Texas A&M and did a film exchange with Rick in Hawaii during one of the tournaments. And Rick called him and offered him his assistant job. And he says, if you really want to take your career next, come work for me. I will let you run the show. I will let you do the recruiting. I'll let you do the scouting. I'll let you do the team prep. We're just going to run things my way. That's it. And Porter wrestled with it. I mean, he toyed with the idea. You know, one of the jobs he had was close back to home. And now here's a guy, when we got fired at A&M, he was having a hard time getting the next gig, okay? And he decided to go work for Rick Majerus. To this day, and he said it in the Final Four, to this day, it was the single greatest thing that ever happened to him was getting fired at Illinois State. But he'll tell you in the same breath, the hardest thing he ever did do was go home and tell his kids that we're no longer Redbirds. Okay. So what seemed like the biggest piece of adversity, he thought it was the most powerful thing that could have happened to him. And we talked this night, we talked leading up to this. He'll always remember that. He will always remember, no matter what happens to him, no matter what happens to Loyola, no matter what happens to his player, there's something positive that's going to come out of it as long as you approach it the right way. Okay. And I was just talking about this, right? It happens for us. You reframe the circumstance. You see opportunity instead of obstacles. You control your response and actions as opposed to reacting to it. So you're more of a proactive mindset and you have the growth mindset. And the bottom line is you increase your positivity and emotional energy, which is something that's so important. And I meant to mention at the beginning when I talk about pause, breathe, and reflect. You've got to really, during adverse times, you've got to think every single morning in your morning routine, how do I want to show up today? How do I want to be for my people? Okay. And your people could just be your family. Your people could be your neighbors. Your people could be your friends. Your people could be your team at work. Okay. So what else do we control? We control our attitude. It's the very first choice we make every single day before our feet hit the floor. What is your attitude going to be? My morning routine, real quick, because this is a whole other presentation, is real simple. I wake up. Okay. I do my positive affirmation. I say my prayer. I get up. I feed a dog, not really part of my morning routine, but if I don't, she'll wake everybody else in the neighborhood up. But then I meditate, I journal, I read, and I get on with whatever it is. And I do get up at 4:30 every morning because of the kids my age are, because of the fact my wife's working from home. It's just something that I have to do. And every morning I don't feel like getting up at 4:30. I simply say in my head, if you're not willing to do it, then you're unwilling to have it, right? Unwilling to do it, you're unwilling to have it. So the next line I want you to really think about here and stay with me on this one, because how you think is how you feel, and how you feel is how you act. And why am I telling you this? Because we hear this all the time. There's so many people in my space that say things to be cliché-ish or say things to be cute. Here's the bottom line. We always complain that we don't have control over our level of success. That's complete BS, for lack of a better term. Forgive me, okay? But we have absolute control over what we pay attention to. Think about the morning when you first get up. Do you grab your phone? Do you look at social media? Do you look at the news? Do you look at what text you missed? Do you look at what emails? Do you respond to the things going on in the world? Or do you control what you're going to pay attention to? Because when we direct our attention to something, that controls our thoughts. And our thoughts are what impact our emotions. Those control our emotions. That's what makes us feel the way we do. Okay, that's why gratitude is so important. It is physiological impossible to be both grateful and anxious at the same time. It's physiological impossible to be both grateful and anxious at the same time. So when you control your emotions are going to dictate your behavior. And your behavior is what drives your action, your execution, your behavior, which then will determine your level of success. So that's more of a longer explanation of that simple thing, feel, and act, but it's so true. So to start it from the beginning of your day, you have absolute control over what level of success you have. Okay. What do you read? What do you listen to? And what do you watch? I talk to college students all the time about you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, but also where you spend your time, right? What do you read? What do you listen to? And what do you watch? And I believe something that's really big is self-talk. And I want to ask you a question. If the conversation that you have in your head sometimes were to play out over a loudspeaker when you're sitting on the train, bad example right now, obviously, when you're sitting in a coffee shop, when you're at the dinner table with the family, if that self-talk going on in your head were to play out loud, would that offend someone? Then would that make someone feel bad? I mean, what do you think it's doing to you, right? What do you think it's doing to you? So what do you do about that? Well, Dr. James P. Gill, okay, incredible story, ophthalmologist, brilliant man behind the cataract surgery, everything. But where I got to know Dr. James P. Gill was on a podcast many years ago. Okay. I love triathlons, was training for a half Ironman before it got canceled last year. Now I'm hoping next year goes. But Dr. James P. Gill, think about this, 6 double Ironmans. And what a double Ironman is you finish 2 Ironman distances. So 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, and a marathon. You do that twice within 36 hours. All right. They asked him what his key to success was. Like, how did you do that? Physically, how could you do that? Oh, by the way, he finished his last double Ironman when he was in his 50s. Okay. And he said it was real simple. He goes, I learned to stop listening to myself and start talking to myself. Because what we do is when we have negative self-talk or we have anxiety or we feel impatient, we try to like fight it. We try to combat it. We try to stop listening to it. Don't just override it, right? What are you feeding? What are you feeding your subconscious? Because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between perception and reality. What are the messages and what are the words you're using inside of your head and controlling the conversation? So absolutely another thing that we have control over. I love this one. And if any of you don't know this, this is Bethany Hamilton, okay? And there's a great movie, Soul Surfer. And the way this popped up for me was when this pandemic first hit, I wasn't going to start watching all this stuff that my kids watch on TV movie-wise. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to start watching sports movies that are based on true stories. They loved it, you know, and now it's why my daughter has fallen in love with horses. That's a different story. But one of the first movies we watched was Soul Surfer. And Bethany Hamilton was 13 years old. She was on the rise to become a professional surfer. And she was attacked by a shark, okay? And that's an actual picture on the right-hand side of the surfboard she was riding and her arm after the surgery. Everybody in her world said, slow down. Don't worry about it. You never have to get in the water again. And if you don't, we understand. If you're scared, we understand. And at the age of 13, she figured out that the sooner I get back in the water, the sooner I get back on my surfboard, and the sooner something real good is going to happen to my surfing career. And this shows up all the time in the business world when you talk to these people. When you believe something good is about to happen, not that you're sitting there and waiting. And that's why I put the Stockdale Paradox in there. I'm not sure if all of you have heard that story. One book you have to read in the business world is Good to Great by Jim Collins. He tells a story in there about General Stockdale, who was a prisoner at the Hanoi Hotel. Okay, one of the most infamous prison POW camps ever. And they asked him, they said, you know, General Stockdale, you survived for so long. Who are the ones that didn't make it? He said, the optimist. What do you mean the optimist? No, the optimist. You're not the people that are realistic and optimistic, not the optimistic realist or the realistic optimist, however you want to word it, but the ones that sat there like, okay, when Christmas comes, I'll be rescued. It didn't happen. When Easter comes, we'll get out of here. It didn't happen. When summer comes, we'll be sent home. It didn't happen, and they died. They didn't work towards anything. They had no purpose, right? They were optimists. They just believed that something. That's not what I'm talking about here. Something as good as about to happen means this. It means you are locked into your process. You're committed to what you're doing, what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, the way you're supposed to do it, okay? And then you believe something good is about to happen, okay? And then you just keep moving forward. In athletics, it's like the next play. You have a turnover, keep going. Next. What's next? Now, this is my daughter, okay? This first picture is back at the beginning of spring. Obviously, you can tell the leaves on the trees. And I just received an email the night before telling us that baseball was put on hold, possibly canceled. She had never played baseball before on a team, just her and I in the yard, okay? This was about 7:40 in the morning, 7:45 in the morning before she had to start homeschooling, okay? And she said, Daddy, let's go play catch. I go, we can't play catch. And then all of a sudden I realized the email, right? I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to break it to her some way. Maybe playing catch outside in front of the house would be a good way to break it to her, you know? That wasn't it. As soon as we started playing catch, I'm like, that's not gonna happen. So as we just talked, and I let her talk about homeschooling and she miss her friends, and you've been doing about a month at that point, maybe almost 2 months. She says, Daddy, I don't know if there's going to be a baseball season. I've said nothing to her at this point. She goes, I don't know if there's going to be a baseball season, but I do know if there is, I'm going to be ready to get on the mound. I mean, she was 7 years old at the time, right? So on the right-hand side is the last game of the year, playing the Yankees, a team that beat them like 3,000-0 one time. She's on the mound. All right. She struck the first two guys out. This is the bottom of the third or bottom of the fourth, what usually is the last inning, but ended up being the second to last inning. Under the lights, never played under the lights before. I don't even know if she's ever seen a field with lights on it until this night besides on TV. And this is the little girl that said, I'll be ready.
Aaron, heads up! Yeah!
And that's it, right? That's it. And I just show that because that's what happens when you believe something good is about to happen. Now, purpose, okay? And this is my guy, Bonner Rennick. Bonner's on podcast episodes 91 and 92. Nope, 90 and 91, okay? And Bonner, amazing story, born with cerebral palsy. Mom refused to talk to him about it, refused to ever even acknowledge it. As he explains it, she used to get him dressed up like the Partridge Family every Sunday and take him to church like the world was perfect. Dad left the family. Bonner grew up very angry, very ticked at the world, was working for the Anaheim Ducks. And it was during the lockout in the early 2000s, I believe it was. The owner of the Anaheim Ducks called them together and said, listen, find a purpose bigger than yourself right now, okay? During this time, it's been real hard because you can't come to work. Like, we have nothing that you can do. Find a purpose bigger than yourself. Dial into your why. Find a charity that means something to you personally. Now, here's someone who never talked to anybody about a cerebral palsy, okay? And he went and volunteered for a group that did stuff for kids suffering from cerebral palsy, spoke to the board, did a presentation, a motivational speech, not even a motivational speech, just talked about what it was like to live with it, okay? Became very good friends with a gentleman who had a son by the name of Jakey, all right? And became really good friends with them. And they used to go running together and talk. It was the first time in his life that Bonner was able to open up to someone and be vulnerable about what his CP meant to him. Decided I'll do the marathon. I'll do half of the full marathon with you for fundraising for Jakey, Team Jakey. And instead of running half of the half, ran the half, met Jakey at the finish line, okay? Met Jakey at the finish line. And he goes, Ed, we locked eyes. He goes, Jakey couldn't talk. Jakey couldn't move. He was wheelchair bound. And I knew that he knew that I cared about him. I knew that he loved the fact that I was able to do what I did with what he goes, we just had something. So Bonner goes home that night, calls in sick the next day because now they were back to work. He goes, Ed, I couldn't get out of bed. He goes, my phone's blown up. I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't out of bed. I knew they knew I wasn't coming in, so it couldn't be that important. But finally, I grabbed my phone. And it was someone from the board that says, Bonner, you need to sit down when I tell you this. He goes, you had an amazing time last night with Jakey and his family. He goes, Jakey passed away last night. They don't know how it happened, but he passed away in his sleep. From that day on, Bonner's purpose became to impact the lives of kids and provide for the lives of kids with cerebral palsy. He started one man, one mission. And now he gets medical help for these kids all over the world that sets up all these clinics in these third world countries. And he goes, I realized for the first 30-something years of my life, I had a terrible attitude. He goes, I realized I can control my attitude and dial into my purpose. And it's about what gets you up in the morning, right? Like, we're all worried during adversity about what keeps us up at night. But if you turn that focus, we talk a lot about flipping it, right, to what's going to get me up in the morning. And when your purpose is greater than the pain you're feeling and the struggle you're having, then your purpose is going to win. And then as we wind down here to the presentation part of it, this is my good friend, Brian Delaney, okay, on the right-hand side. Brian was 2 years older than me. Now, lift yourself up by lifting others up. And that's the servant mindset. That's being selfless. And that's by putting others. It's amazing what happens to you when you concern yourself with others and the struggles that they're going through and how you can help them and how you can serve them. Okay. And how you can lift them up. Okay. So Brian was diagnosed his senior year, the night before his homecoming football game, our homecoming football game. He was diagnosed with leukemia. Okay. And it's one of those nights where you never forget where you are, where you're sitting when you hear it. I was at our Royal Rally, which was a big tradition at Palatine, 2,000 people in a gym, and they announced it. Okay. Brian and I were close already. We became very close. He was like he used to kick my butt in open gym. When I used to come up in 8th grade, he played for my dad. I used to come up in 8th grade and play with the varsity team, and he would just use me. Okay. But he also put his arm around me. He also looked out for me, and he also talked to me. And when he was diagnosed with leukemia, we became pretty close. As a matter of fact, the last time I saw Brian alive was the day after I may have been kicked out of a basketball game for fighting. But I saw Brian in the ICU, and he was he was laying on his sand bed because his bones were still so fragile. Okay. But he still had it in him to sit himself up, to push himself up, much to the angst of the nurses and his father. And he's got all these, he's in NICU, really, because it's the only where they could have the equipment for him. There's all these babies on life support. It was very Unbelievable. And anyways, he sat there and still tried to tell me how to stick and move. And it was just Brian, right? But it was never about Brian. It was always about you. And that's just very early on, I realized what an impact that could have on people's lives. And this picture is after Brian had chemo. And he was sick in this picture. I mean, he was sick. And through a family friend connected with Michael. And Michael brought him out to a game. And I swear to this day, they were playing the Washington Bullets because the Bulls were winning by like 1,000. And it's the only team at that point the Bulls could beat by 1,000. And every time Michael would come out of the game, he'd sit next to Brian. As a matter of fact, he sat the entire fourth quarter next to Brian. And that's when this picture was taken. Okay. And they talked like they were best friends. So fast forward several years, I'm helping run the Michael Jordan camp at Elmhurst College. And we're running kids, George's bodyguard, myself, are running kids through to get autographs from Michael. And there's kind of a stop. There's a break in the action. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to take a shot at this. And I said, Mike, I said, listen, I said, I just got to say thank you right now. I go, you did something for a dear friend of mine who meant the world to me. And you did something that meant so much to him and meant so much to his family. You probably don't know how significant it was, but I want to thank you. And he goes, well, who was the friend and when was it? I said, it was Brian Delaney. As soon as I said the name Brian Delaney, his eyes lit up. He had George shut the door and he sat and he asked me how I knew Brian. And he wanted to know stories about Brian. And then Mike asked me about Brian's family. Now, this is 5 years later. He asked me, maybe 7 years later, asked me about Brian's family by their name. Okay. So I don't know how this popped up a couple of weeks ago. And his sister and I were communicating. And I told her the story. And I swear I told her the story years ago. And she claimed she had too much wine the time I told her the story, which, okay. But it really moved her. And she says, I'm amazed that Michael remembered all of our names. I said, you need to understand something, Aaron. I said, Brian being Brian probably did more for Michael that night than Michael did for Brian. And when you're selfless and you serve others, that's what you have the ability to do. And when you let them know that you refuse to let them fail, that's going to come back to you tenfold. I got a good friend of mine, Ted Simondinger, who's on the podcast, amazing human being. He talks about like life's about, we're all going to be in the barrel at some point in our life. And how many hands reach into the barrel to help you out is a direct reflection of how many times you put your hand in the barrel to help somebody else out. And this is it right here, right? Keep moving forward, find a way, lock into your process, no matter what's going on, lock into it every single day. And how much are you willing to endure? Grit, persistence, and resilience. And that's where the magic happens, right? In the consistency and the ability to endure. Now, many of you will know this. This is Sean Jacob. He's one of my guys, right? And we lost Sean last year, almost a year ago. But these things are things Sean and I talked about all the time too. Don't have the victim mentality. Perspective. Put life in perspective every single day. No matter how bad you have it, somebody somewhere else has it a lot more difficult than you. Control the controllable and operate with the purpose. When your purpose is greater than the circumstance and the struggle and the adversity you're going through, purpose is going to win every time. Believe something good is about to happen, but don't sit back and wait for it to happen. Keep moving forward. Okay. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the Q&A. This is my information if you want to write it down, but I will get all of this to you. I'm going to send this presentation. I hope something resonated with you. I hope there was one or two takeaways that you had that will help you grow through the adversity either you're going through now or you will go through here at some point. So, Dan, let's open it up to
Absolutely.
Q&A.
Thanks so much, Ed. We do have a couple questions that have been submitted. We've got looks about 5 minutes, so about the top of the hour. The first one, Kevin MG, class of 81, wants to know, being a men's basketball alum, is it a rule that you have to sound like Coach Ray?
I'll tell you what, you got to go to the archives. Coach Ray went about 2 weeks without talking to me. And I hope Coach Ray's on this because I invited him. And I don't know if he is. I play defense better than he ever did, by the way. But anyways, I did a video. We used to do Christmas rap videos. And I did a video and they interviewed me on SAU, whatever the TV station was. And I did my entire interview in my best Coach Ray impersonation. I know somebody has it there. And it was awesome. Coach Ray's the best. And tell you what, if I have as much success in my career as Coach Ray and as big of an impact on as many people as Coach Ray has at St. Ambrose University, let me rephrase it, half as many people, okay, then I will feel like I've done my job and what I was put here to do. He is just an amazing individual, an amazing man who he is St. Ambrose University.
Couldn't agree more. We talk to so many alums that have wonderful things to say about him many, many years after they leave campus. That would say the exact same thing you just did. Another question, thinking back to your time at St. Ambrose, maybe talk about one or two things that prepared you, not only in the coaching world, but just kind of the business world. What did you take away from your time here under the Oaks?
Well, and I'll tell you, it'll go back to Ray on a couple things. I was at Creighton for my first 2 years of college. And when I was at Creighton, some of my best friends, some of my closest guys are still from Creighton. Went to an NCAA tournament, went to an NIT tournament. Some great memories of actually playing. And life was great. Hawaii, Italy, the nicest gear, shoes, TV, all that stuff. And I just missed playing a lot. And I just transferred to St. Ambrose. And humility set in right away because I saw how Coach Ray and his staff did the most they could with what they had, right? I saw how he would sweep the floor. I saw how they would do the laundry. I saw the locker room, that we had. And you know what? We were just as happy, if not happier. We had just as much fun, if not more fun. We played just as hard, if not harder. I shouldn't say that. We played pretty hard. But my point being is I learned really quick what it meant to drive a van in a snowstorm when you couldn't see anything, and from Ambrose itself, the family, the culture, the unity. And I'll tell you, one of the best classes I took at St. Ambrose, and I took some great ones, the leadership class with Floyd, Begin, it's corporate leadership. But really, the best class I took at St. Ambrose, and I told them this, is corporate finance from Coach Ray. And the reason being is it was about more than corporate finance, right? Reading the Wall Street Journal, engaging ourselves with what was really going on, and talking about it, and struggling through it. It was a bear of a class, but in just the whole that we were in this together. It didn't matter who you hung. There really wasn't cliques. Like, yeah, people hung out in groups, but we were all SAU folks. And that to me is something that I took away. My first job when I left St. Ambrose was as a grad assistant at Lewis University. And I had no problem grabbing the mop and sweeping the floor. I had no problem driving a van in a snowstorm. I had no problem doing the lunch because you know what? I watched Coach Ray do it. I watched the staff do it. I watched the other sport coaches do it. And just the amazing people there. And I'll tell you, the football coach at the time was Coach Woodley, okay? And when I was coaching at Texas A&M, we're playing at Iowa State. And Iowa State was good. Tim Floyd was the head coach. Iowa State was good, but we had a shot at beating them. And we're at Iowa State. We're at the hotel. And a lot of us had friends come in from Chicago. So we're sitting in the lobby, and I hear this voice. My God, that sounds like Coach Woodley. I used to call him Coach Wood Dog. I'm like, but I didn't realize he was at Iowa State at the time. I turn and look, and there he is. It was recruiting weekend. So they had a bunch of recruits and their parents in the bar area and the restaurant and stuff. So we didn't talk about A&M. We didn't talk about Iowa State. We talked about St. Ambrose, and we talked about our experiences there, how it prepared us for our careers at the next level. So there was so much there from St. Ambrose that still to this day goes with me.
That's great to hear. I want to be mindful of the clock here. I know there have been a couple questions submitted. Real quick, Chris Parts wants to know the greatest lesson you've learned from starting your own business.
Oh, geez. Okay, two things. Be mindful of the clock. If folks want to stick with me, don't worry about it. I don't have to jump off. I'll stay as long as we have questions. That's not a problem. If you have to jump off, don't worry because you're getting the recording. Okay, and we'll get that to you. I'll take as many questions as you want. The biggest lesson I've learned from starting my own business is at the end of the day, it's on you. Every single thing is on you. Okay. Your preparation, your organization, your decision-making, your ability to connect with other people, every single thing. It doesn't matter who may let you down that you hire to work with you, to work for you, or to be a vendor, or at the end of the day, it is on you. But here's the thing, and it'll go back to, and this is not cliche-ish, I mean, the thing that's gotten me through some time, we've had some tough times. I mean, there was times we lost a lot of money in events. There were some times that were a struggle, and I was ready for the pandemic. For me, has it been a struggle at times? Yeah, but I was ready for it without even knowing it was coming. Okay, I was prepared when I didn't have time to prepare because of the things that I had already been through. And when you know why you're doing something, when you have a sense of purpose and you are very authentic and you're very sincere and you're very real in the way you do things, and you avoid that comparison gap, okay, comparing yourselves to others, you avoid thinking that you're a fraud or a fake. When you know what you're doing, that's going to get you through. But here's the thing. If there's something that you're passionate about and there's something that you have to offer the world and you believe in enough, just go find a way to get it done. And don't forget to thank the people along the way that help you, because you cannot go it alone, no matter how alone you feel, no matter how much of an island you feel on. It's kind of funny because it's kind of contradictory. There's a lot of times I'll sit in my chair at night and it's just me. Everyone in the world could be asleep. No one cares about the bank balance, balance on my bank account for the Molitor Group. Nobody cares what's in the funnel. No one cares what sales are coming down the pipeline. Nobody cares what fell through except me. Okay. Or my wife when she finds out about it. But nobody cares. But you know what, though? I also sit there and do gratitude exercises of all the people that have helped me along the way, who I couldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for them. So hopefully that helps you just a little bit. And if you want to get in the X and O's about the starting your own business, call me, email me, text me, whatever. I'd be more than happy to walk you through that, because one lesson is not enough. There's so many lessons.
Sure. And one final one here from Karen. She wants to know what you would tell your 21-year-old self.
Stay out of Blayards. No, I wouldn't, as a matter of fact. Okay. That was your $2 went the farthest there. No. What I would tell my 20-year-old self is don't believe in yourself enough that that's going to impress people. Don't feel like you need to go out of your way to impress people. Just impress people with your work ethic, be genuine, care for others, put others first ahead of you. If you work hard enough, long enough, smart enough, good things are going to happen. Run to the fight. Struggle. It's okay to struggle. Don't worry about your image. Everyone talks about image is everything. It's a debate, right? Don't worry about your image, because at the end of the day, everything comes out in the wash. Be true to who you are. Be true to your core values. Know what your core values are and believe in yourself enough to make the right decisions for the right reasons.
Great. So with that, I think we will go ahead and wrap up here today. Want to take a second to thank everyone, both that attended and also Ed for your time. I know I took some stuff away myself. Just a reminder to everyone on the call, there's always details available online about all of our alumni news, volunteer opportunities, events. We're hoping to continue this series of events. So be sure to look out on the website for more of those details. You can find all that at sau.edu/alumni. So again, that'll wrap us up today. Thanks so much, and we hope to hear from all of you soon.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.